There it goes. We are live on YouTube now, so folks will start joining us on YouTube. Don't say anything bad about Billy. Shh. And it's like, okay.
He's like, on it.
I better mute myself.
That's why I came on early. I was trying to get a few digs in, you know.
We have 6 minutes and already, well, I was going to say 11 people, but now we have 10 in the waiting room. Let them in here in a second or two. So is your driveway melted?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What I'm afraid of now is we're going to be flooding. Because, I mean, I've got water standing everywhere around my house. And I'm just like, wow.
Yeah, it's going to put a lot on our storm system for sure.
And it poured the rain last night. And I was like, oh, please. Well, it's good, but bad. Because it's going to melt the snow that's sitting there.
Yeah.
Do you see the mounds of snow that are in when you're driving on Nicholasville Road? They're like, they're like taller than the truck.
Yeah, I know. There's mountains that may be here for a few months.
It'll probably be there till June. They should do like some kind of program. It's like, all right, you get a free something or other if you say what date, this will be gone. It'll be fun. How long will it take for the snow? Because it didn't seem to do any melting yesterday. Do we want to let the folks in?
Oh, sure enough.
Okay. Hello, folks. Thanks for joining us. We will get started in about 4 minutes. Appreciate you being here. We had a little touch of, I don't know, it felt like summer yesterday. It was like a 68, but man, it felt hot. It's so funny. The thought of what, I guess your perception of what heat is depends on what your cold was or
Yep, sure.
Because it felt like 90 degrees outside yesterday.
I know. It was great hearing everybody complain about how hot it was.
I know, right? I was just like, dude, leave it alone. It's awesome,
It'll change.
Yeah. My neighbor had told me yesterday that she had heard we were going to get 4 inches of snow this weekend, but I've not heard. Have you heard that? I've not heard that. And I hope we do not, because I do not want. I'm done.
4 inches shouldn't be that much.
I'm done with winter, though. I'm done. I know it's not done, but
it's still winter season, so
I love winter, but this year, I'm done. 2 weeks of driving on ice, and I'm done.
Enough to get you.
Exactly. I hope you all are doing well and your roads have melted if you hadn't gotten anything cleaned off.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I ended up shoveling some that I probably didn't need to yesterday, but that's okay.
Well, I beat my driveway. The rest of it I got one of those ice spades, and I did that for about an hour yesterday. Now, then last night when it was pouring the rain, I'm like, probably didn't need to do that. But I still do have where I didn't do it. I still have ice, so I thought, well, maybe it'll go away today. We'll see.
Yeah. Hopefully everybody out there is doing okay too, and got your ice taken care of.
Since we have 3 minutes or so, in the chat pod, drop in where you're from or what county. If you live in Kentucky, drop in what county you're from, and if you don't, then put in what state and city you're in. Hickman County, Hart. Awesome. I'm always curious as to where people are. People are McCracken.
Our Western Kentucky friends.
Boone. North. Thank y'all for doing that. Appreciate you watching each and every week.
Yeah, no doubt. It's always a little odd just to kind of be talking into the
camera. This makes it a little more personable, Hart and Nelson. Awesome. Yeah. At least now we can kind of get all right, where are people, where are people from? Madison, Versailles.
2 minutes, folks.
Trig. Awesome. Louisville. Okay. Oh, and don't forget to, and in case I forget to mention it, if you haven't signed up for our reminders every week, I know some people have them and they're signed up and they get them every week. But if you haven't, you can put your email address down in here and tell me if you want 1 hour or 3 day, 2 to 3 day reminder, and I'll get you signed up so that you won't miss an episode. And it'll tell you too what we're going to be talking about.
Hmm.
Woodford. This is good.
Mm-hmm.
Lawrence
Cool.
County. We've got them all over the state. This is awesome.
Nice spread.
Nice spread. Appreciate y'all.
Yep. All right. We about got time to get going.
Almost. We got what, 30 seconds maybe?
Getting there. Got a good show for y'all today. That's for
We
sure.
do. It's really cool. Oldham. Awesome. Boone. Two in Boone now.
Awesome.
Y'all can have a watching party.
Yeah. Get together.
All right. Billy, you want to go ahead and get this recording?
Let's do it.
All right. There you go. Hi, I'm Renee Williams.
And I'm Billy Thomas.
And welcome to another edition of From the Woods Today. We have a really neat show for you because we are talking about bark clinging birds, which I think is really cool because a lot of times you'll see them, they'll be hanging upside down. You're like, how are you doing that? So it's really neat. And then, Billy, have you ever wondered what certain flowers might mean?
Yeah, I mean, yes, what do they mean? What does a flower mean?
Exactly. Like certain names have certain meanings. And so we're going to learn about that today as well.
Awesome. Yeah, really excited to have our guest going to be coming on in a minute. We have Dr. DJ McNeil with another edition of his Wings of Kentucky. And as Renee indicated, we're going to be talking about bark clinging birds. So, if you've ever seen those birds hanging on the side of a tree, we're probably going to talk about them today, or at least Dr. McNeil will.
And listen to them, see what they sound like.
Yeah. And then Anna's with us, Anna Weicker, our Master Naturalist Program Coordinator. She's going to be talking about those flowers and that symbolism and what does all that mean. So should be a great episode. Really enjoy both of these guests. And if you all have questions for either one of them, please use the chat function. If you're with us on Zoom, and if you're on YouTube or you're a podcast listener, thank you. But you can hit us up via email at forestry.extension@uky.edu, and we can interact with you that way. But Renee, excited to be with you on a nice, pleasant day here in Lexington, Kentucky.
Yeah. A little warmer and a little less slick than last week. So we appreciate that. And we were going to go ahead and get started. Dr. DJ McNeil can't be here because I think he actually teaches class at the same time.
Unfortunately.
So he is awesome at giving us videos. And if you have any questions, we can get those questions to him and get them answered. But let's go ahead and get his video going.
All right. I'll get her queued up.
Okay, folks, welcome to another Wings of Kentucky. I'm DJ McNeil with the University of Kentucky Forestry and Natural Resources Department. I'm very excited to talk to you today, an encore of a talk I've given before on the bark clinging birds of Kentucky. So what does that mean, bark clinging birds? Well, these are birds that you're likely to find clinging to the bark of a tree. Now, Kentucky is a place that has a lot of trees. Especially with us being in the Department of Forestry and Natural Resources, celebrating our trees, the bark clinging birds are a fun group to think and talk about. Especially, it's especially fun to think about the outdoors at a time like this when it's not especially fun to be outdoors. Okay, let's dive right in. Oh, and actually, let me just unshare briefly here, stop share, and then I have to reshare again. Make sure I've got my sound shared. Okay, that should work now. Okay, so this is what I've shown here, a list of the birds that we're going to discuss today. Now, this is not all of the bark clinging birds you can find in Kentucky, but these are the ones we're going to talk about today, which are the main ones. We're going to talk about birds in the order Piciformes and the family Picidae. These are the woodpeckers. These are most of the ones we're going to talk about. The other order we're going to discuss is this one here, and all of these birds are in the same order. So the piciforms, they're the woodpeckers. They have all kinds of specialized adaptations for climbing on trees. The most distinctive of which is having 2 toes in the front and 2 toes in the back on each leg. The rest of these birds are all in passeriforms, the perching birds. And with the exception of the brown creeper, they have just regular straight tail feathers, the nuthatches as well. The brown creeper actually has feathers on the tail, almost like a woodpecker, that kind of are in contact with the tree. But regardless, these are all in 3 different families in the perching bird order. Cetidae, which are the nuthatches, Corythidae, which are the creepers, and Parulidae, which are the wood warblers. So we're going to cover 7 woodpeckers, 3 nuthatches, 1 creeper, and 1 wood warbler. Well, let's jump right in. The first one we're going to explore today is the downy woodpecker. And this is our smallest and possibly most widespread and common backyard woodpecker. It's a very familiar to many of us. Again, like all woodpeckers, that's 4 toes in the front, or 2 toes in the front, 2 in the back. This prop-like tail. Relatively straightforward to identify. We've got a black and white striped head with basically this white malar and a white supercilium, this cheek spot back here, a nape spot, if you will. The wings are dark with white checkering, and when you see it from the side or the back, you see this white stripe going down the back. That's very helpful for ID. It's also a tiny little woodpecker that has a teeny little beak that often in some individuals barely protrudes past these sort of downy plumes on the face. The male and the female are identical with one exception. The male has this little red spot on the nape and the female is all black and white. Now, vocally, not too bad to identify the downy woodpecker. The song is a trilling whinny. And the easy way to remember it is the downy woodpecker. The trilling whinny descends or goes down. The downy woodpecker song goes down. So let's listen to that. And here's a separate individual. They also produce a pick call, which they do very often, this very soft little pick. And of course, like all woodpeckers, they produce a drum. Now, most woodpecker drumming is really difficult to ID, including the downy woodpecker, but I've got them in here just for reference. Okay, next up, we have the hairy woodpecker. And honestly, the color scheme is basically the same as what we see in the downy woodpecker, where we've got the male has a red nape, the female lacks the red nape. Otherwise, the coloration is completely the same. One helpful trick, actually, if you have a male woodpecker and you see it from behind, or you see the back of the head, this male kind of shows it. Most hairy woodpeckers have a little black division going right down the middle of the nape, whereas the downy is a solid red nape. So that can be a helpful characteristic for identifying this species. The other thing that you want to look for discerning from the downy woodpecker, because again, plumage-wise, it's virtually indistinguishable, is we've got a much longer bill. So the bill on the hairy woodpecker is pretty much the same size as the rest of the skull, whereas in the downy woodpecker, it barely protrudes. Now, from pictures, this is hard to tell, but size is also a biggie. The downy woodpecker is about half the size of the hairy woodpecker, so that can be a very helpful characteristic if you're good with size or if you have some sort of reference for size. Sometimes if you just, again, if you're seeing like a picture, it's really tough to gauge how big something is. Vocally, pretty easy to tell apart from the downy woodpecker. So it is a trill, whinny type call, just like the downy woodpecker, but unlike the downy, which goes down at the end, the hairy woodpecker is flat. It's also more shrill and more of like a harsh rattle. The call, it also does a picket call, just like the downy woodpecker, but its picket call is much more like harsh. It sounds like it's being forced out, almost like they're punching it out of themselves. And the drum is fairly typical of woodpeckers. I would not say that I can identify the downy and the hairy apart from their drumming, but here that is for reference. Yeah, there we go. Okay, now let's compare those one more time. The downy woodpecker has a nape that's, well, at least the male, that's red all the way through. The hairy has a black line going up the middle of the nape. The much smaller, daintier bill on the downy woodpecker. The hairy has this big, scary looking bill. And then in the song, the hairy's is flat and steady and very harsh sounding. Whereas the downy's descends at the end or goes down. Okay, next up we have the red-bellied woodpecker. This is one that gets a lot of criticism for its name, which admittedly is not a great name, but this image kind of shows you why it is called a red-bellied woodpecker. It does have a subtle red blush to the belly. You'll hear those who are relatively new to birds often mistakenly calling this a red-headed woodpecker, which is fair, to be totally honest, because it does have a lot of red on the head. But we're going to see the actual red-headed woodpecker in a bit, which has a fully red head. Color scheme you're looking for on this bird is most individuals tend to be buff with a black and white barred back and some amount of red on the head. Other individuals can be more of a gray than a buff, but they're still going to have a black and white barred back and some amount of red on the head. The male's red goes from the crown all the way to the nape, whereas the female's is just pretty much on the nape, maybe a little hint right here around the nostrils. They always have this sort of barred back and this checkered sort of pattern to the wings, really distinctive bird. Now, vocally, not too bad either. It has a song, which is like a rich trill that sounds like quirr, quirr. The call is also very familiar to many. It's this sort of husky choke, 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 or some would say a chee, chee, chee. And of course, the drumming. And a bonus pine warbler. Okay, here's the real red-headed woodpecker. This one is aptly named. Its head is completely red. There's no question about it. Visually, it's also very easy because we've got white underparts, we've got a black tail, black upper parts, with the exception of the secondary flight feathers, which are white. Really unmistakable. The one that might trip you up is this one. Is it the female? No, this is the juvenile. Both the adults, male and female, look exactly like this. The juvenile has this brown head. Some individuals, you might see like a red feather or two coming through, but generally brown head, but otherwise the color scheme is similar to the adult. The secondary flight feathers still predominantly white, but they do have little black spots at the tips of those. Not a bad woodpecker for identification because you've got this black and white color scheme on the back that's just like solid black, solid white, and like pretty much solid grayish head. Not too bad in terms of visual identification. Vocally, also not too bad. I think if you're going to mix it up with something, it would be that quirr call of the red-bellied woodpecker, but instead of like a rich quirr, quirr, it's more of like a shriek. So let's listen to that scream. They also produce like this really chuckly rattle call, usually done in flight, but not always. In fact, what this call reminds me of It reminds me of either a gray tree frog if you're a herp type person, a herpetologist, you're into frogs and toads and that sort of thing, or it sounds very similar to the call of a raccoon. And then, of course, the drumming. Okay, next up we have the yellow-bellied sapsucker. These birds are relatively variable in terms of plumage, especially this time of year when we have juveniles, males and females, all kind of here in Kentucky. They're all kind of doing their own thing. There's no clear territories. It's just you see a sapsucker, it could be any of these phenotypes. Let's start with the head. So we've got basically a white supercilium and a white malar, kind of like a downy woodpecker on the male, the female, and the juvenile. But on both the male and the female, we have a red forecrown, and on the male only, we have a red throat. The female has a white throat, and the juvenile is pretty much just like dirty all over the face. Now let's keep working our way down. The male has this black mark on the breast. So does the female. The juvenile usually doesn't, okay? Kind of like a complicated story here. Let's look at the breast and belly. We've got all kinds of streaks and stripes and little chevron marks all over the bird. Some birds are white with chevrons. Some birds are like brown. Some birds have that classic yellow belly. Others don't really clearly have that, right? So it starts getting kind of confusing. Here is the way to ward off the confusion. What you're looking for is a woodpecker that may or may not have red on the head, but it is dirty looking. It's very streaky and brown, just isn't clean looking on the underparts like the other ones. And the downy woodpecker, remember, has that white stripe going down the back, as does the hairy. But these guys, it's just like messier looking, right? So the sapsucker has a very messy appearance to it. And then here's the thing that they always have, the gimme to the sapsucker. Right here, this white shoulder. So they always have the white shoulder. They never lack the white shoulder. Now, I will warn you, when it's cold, which it is, they will tuck this wing up under their flank feathers, and those flank feathers can actually cover up that white shoulder. So you need to make sure that before you determine whether it's a sapsucker or not, determine, did you actually see the shoulder? If you see the white, boom, it is sapsucker. And if the bird is all fluffed out and you can't see the shoulder, pay attention. Is it very dirty in appearance? And if so, it's probably a sapsucker. Vocally, you're not going to mix this up with much of anything. They do a shrill scream. I don't hear them often doing it this time of year, but I will play it for you. What you do hear a lot this time of year is the mew call. Now, in terms of the drumming, this is actually one that's very easy to tell apart from other woodpeckers, but I don't hear them doing their drumming much this time of year. The drumming is an irregular pattern of drums. Unlike the others, which basically form like a drum trill, the sapsucker does this erratic drumming that kind of gets slower as it goes on. And here's a different individual. Okay, moving on. The northern flicker. This one's a pretty straightforward one. One of the key things that's really helpful with the flicker, and there's a bunch of stuff, but one of the things is that the color palette is pretty different than the other woodpeckers. Most of our woodpeckers have kind of a black and white color scheme. The red belly sort of tends to be a bit more on the buff side of things, but for the most part, our woodpeckers are black and white. The flicker actually kind of throws that on its head by doing a brown and black color scheme, essentially, with a little bit of gray thrown in. So on the left, we have a male here, and here's a female. The only real differences between the male and the female is the male has this black mustache you can see kind of on his face. The female lacks the mustache. Both of them are kind of this buffy, salmony brown with a gray nape, with a red spot on the back. And then here, when you're looking at it from the front, easy squeezy, we got this beautiful black V, or this big black smudge on the front of the breast. perfect little circles all over the breast and belly. You're not going to mix that up with anything. And then on the back, you can see it more on the male here. We've got black and brown barring. Really straightforward ID. Now with the woodpecker, it hangs out on the trees for the most part, but it is our only woodpecker that likes to spend a lot of time on the ground, where it actually does its sort of namesake behavior, flicking its tongue in and out of like ant colonies in the soil, which other woodpeckers generally don't do. Vocally, not too bad. Its song is a long, drawn out wick, 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 wick. Let me play that for you first. Notice it's very long and drawn out. It just seems like it goes on for a long time. And also notice that it kind of has a crescendo in the middle. The call, which you'll hear often, is very easy, is either a peal or a clear. And the drumming, which is fairly unremarkable. The last woodpecker we're going to cover is our largest species. So we started with the smallest and we're ending with the largest, the pileated woodpecker. This is a big beefy bird, about the size of a crow, predominantly black on the body, although we've got white on the primary flight feathers that produce a very obvious white patch when it's in flight. We've got a black mallard with sort of this like nose saddle, kind of the back of the ear, auricular area that's kind of white, that forms a stripe that goes down the nape, a little bit of white on the supercilium. The male and female are basically identical with two main exceptions. The female has a black forehead and the male's red goes all the way down to the base of his bill. And this black mustache on the mallard is red in the male and black on the female. So here we have a male and here we have a female, but this is a big bird about the size of a crow. And they're also the only woodpecker that we have with a large pronounced crest. They can raise and lower the crest, but it's generally at least partially up. It's unmistakable. Vocally, you're most likely to mix it up with the flicker. They produce this like very powerful sounding kick, 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 kick. But in the flicker, right, is also a repeated like flick, 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 flick. That's the part that's likely to confuse you. Listen to the pileated. It's much more powerful, and it kind of trails off at the end. It doesn't have that like crescendo per se. It's like a very long, building, powerful, and then it trails off. Ooh, let's go back here. There we go. It's shorter, seems like it almost has like an echo to it, louder, and it has like a powerful feeling to it. The drumming is actually another one that you can sort of tell. It takes a little bit of a trained ear, but it also has a trailing off quality to it. It's like a really loud thundering drum that trails off at the end. Okay, and let's compare that flicker again, which has this wick, 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 wick call that has a crescendo and then just kind of stops, versus the pileated, which is this building powerful call that kind of trails off at the very end. So here's the wick, wick, wick of the flicker that has a crescendo in the middle. And then the very powerful call that's shorter and trails off the end for the pileated. Okay, now that we're through the woodpeckers, next up we have the white-breasted nuthatch. This is a passerine bird, unlike the woodpeckers. Pretty cool bird. They obviously clinging to the bark of the tree. Male and female are very similar. The male's video is moving around a lot, so I'm going to point out field marks on the female. The only difference between the sexes, realistically, is the female's crown is kind of sort of a gray rather than black that you see on the male. But on all of our nuthatches, which we're going to cover 3, they're kind of a bluish color on the back, and the wings tend to be this black and white, kind of almost intricate pattern, very short, stubby little tail. You notice that unlike a woodpecker, they don't use their tail for balance. So that tail just kind of trails behind them, very short and sensible and out of the way. Because they're not using that tail to prop them up, that frees them to run around on the tree in any which way they want. They can go up, they can go sideways, they can go down, which we're actually seeing quite clearly in this male, and nuthatches are sort of famous for doing this. So things to look at on the white-breasted nuthatch, we've got obviously white underparts. We've got a single dark gray or black cap with a very plain face. Vocally, it's not too bad. The song is a loose nasally trill. And the call are these very nasally little Some people describe it as it's like it's saying the word yank. Okay, our next nuthatch is one that we have around in Lexington right now. I took my bird class up to Veterans Park recently, and we saw a nice male, the red-breasted nuthatch. Okay, so how are we going to tell the red-breasted nuthatch from the white-breasted nuthatch? Less intricately patterned wings, still blue above and lighter below. We have, in some birds, like this male, a nice, beautiful rufusy wash to the breast and underparts. Some birds, like this female, are a bit more drab, but easily, the thing that gives it away, you don't even need to think too hard, is look for this stripe that goes through the eyes. Boom, gives it away every time. The red-breasted nuthatch is also considerably smaller than the white-breasted nuthatch, and kind of this just compact, fat little guy that you'll see running around on trees, and especially conifer trees. Now, this bird doesn't look like it's on a conifer, and actually the one we saw at Veterans Park recently was not on a conifer, but they usually are. Okay, so vocally, that's another nasal call, much like the white-breasted nuthatch, but it sounds like a teeny little car horn going meep, 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 like a teeny little, imagine like a Matchbox car if it had a horn. Okay, for our last nuthatch, we have the brown-headed nuthatch. I would say plumage-wise, it does bear a certain resemblance to almost like a mix between a white-breasted and a red-breasted, in that it's got sort of like it's a very small, compact little bird like the red-breasted, but it sort of lacks this white supercilium that we see in the red-breasted. The key thing is it's got a brown head and it's got a white spot on the nape, which you can actually see on this bird when it turns its head. The sexes are basically the same in this species, and it's also a very uncommon nuthatch in Kentucky. The red-breasted nuthatch, we only see it really in the winter, and only in high numbers in some winters. The white-breasted nuthatch is common and widespread all year round. The brown-headed nuthatch is another species that is mostly here all year round, but they're only common in stands of southern pines, like loblolly and shortleaf and things like that. Okay, now on to our 2 other birds in the totally different families. Oh no, that's not true. The call of the brown-headed nuthatch. This one's really easy. It sounds like a squeaky toy, and their main call either sounds like they're saying we do, we do, we do, or if you notice like this one here, we do is 2 notes, but others kind of are like 3 notes. To me, those ones almost sound like they're saying potato, potato, but they're these really fast little squeaky dog toy notes. Okay, as promised, the brown creeper. This is a very strange little bird. It's very tiny, not much bigger than a kinglet, has this long decurved bill. And contrast that with the nuthatches, by the way. Their bills are slightly upturned. They're these kind of beefy chisels. Well, on the brown creeper, it's this dainty little down curved bill, and their tails do actually touch the tree trunk. So as a result, they're mostly going up or sideways on the tree. They actually have a tendency to follow the tree in a spiral as they go up, and they're usually looking for teeny little insects, very intricately patterned back that's mostly shades of brown with a white belly and breast and throat. You're not likely to confuse this with anything else. They're so tiny, and they make very little noise, just creeping relatively quickly, actually, up and down the trunk of a tree, and very easy to overlook. Vocally, in the springtime, they make this beautiful, it's very quiet, but this very beautiful song, this sort of whistling melody that to me sounds almost like they're saying, springtime is finally here. You can come up with your own mnemonic, but it's this jumbled, tumbling, warbling song. And it has a very weak quality to it. Okay, our last bird, the black and white warbler. This time of year, we don't really have the species in Kentucky, but in another couple months, they'll start to return to the state where they breed here. It's a wood warbler, so very beautiful bird, intricately patterned. We've got black and white color scheme. It's very aptly named. In both sexes, we have streaks on the flanks. We also have streaks on the back, and a very boldly patterned black and white striped head, with a black and white striped wings, with this very long stripe that goes down the tertials, which you can see in both sexes, and two white wing bars. The thing that's special about the black and white warbler that other warblers don't really do is it clings to the side of a tree like a nuthatch. And in the female, we have mostly white throat, and the male, we have a mostly black throat. Vocally, another fairly easy one. The song, it has been described to me like a rusty old wheel going around and around and around that makes it like a wheezy, 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 like a little wheel going around and around. Okay, folks, we're going to leave it at that. Thank you for joining us on this month's Wings of Kentucky. Looking forward to next month, which will be, of course, in early March when we do that one. Hopefully, it will be a bit warmer at that time, and we can start thinking about birds that are migrating back to the Commonwealth. Okay, stay warm out there, folks.
We always appreciate Dr. DJ McNeil's presentations. That was awesome. I love hearing all those birds. Some of them I'm like, oh, I know that sound. I didn't know it was that bird, but I knew that sound. And we do have some questions in the chat pod, and obviously he's not here, but we are lucky because Anna Weicker, Anna, if you want to turn your camera on, who's going to be our next presenter talking about the language of flowers, which I think is so cool. She is also a bird extraordinaire.
So many skills, so many talents.
Oh,
I'm no DJ, but I'm happy to
so I
hop on and
texted
talk
her while
for
we
us.
were talking, and I was like, do you know the answer to the how many species of woodpeckers there are? And she goes, sure.
Yeah. All right, drop it on us, Anna.
Drop the knowledge,
Yes,
Anna.
so Renee and Billy are letting me talk about birds and flowers at the same time on the same day. It's a good day. And I am no DJ, but I can definitely hop on here, hopefully, and get these answered. So the first one on there I see is how many different species of woodpeckers are in Kentucky? And that is a little bit complicated. The question right below that is, did DJ cover the red cockaded woodpecker, which used to be in Kentucky? I don't believe that he did. He just kind of covered the ones that you would regularly see kind of today, of which there are, I believe, 7 species that you can kind of still regularly see in the state. And that does not include those ones that are extirpated, like the red cockaded woodpecker. If you're interested in looking that one up, it has a fascinating history. We used to be, I believe, kind of at the northern part of the range. It's a southeastern species that was really, really dependent on longleaf pine forests, I believe. And of course, that's a habitat that's faced a lot of challenges. And so the red cockaded woodpecker also faced a lot of challenges, and the range has greatly shrunken down and no longer includes Kentucky, unfortunately, or we would have that extra species on there. And then we used to also be I believe in far western Kentucky is considered part of the historic range of an unfortunately extinct species of woodpecker, the ivory-billed woodpecker, which is, believed to be completely extinct in, all parts of its range, unlike the red cockaded woodpecker, which is still found in the United States, just not in Kentucky anymore. So we used to have a couple more. Now we have, I believe, 7 species that you can go out and see on the regular. And then, of course, DJ also included some species that are not technically woodpeckers, but exhibit a really similar behavior, like the adorable nuthatches, the brown creeper, some critters like that have similar behaviors and similar niches and are using the tree bark, kind of in a similar way to search for food. And then I saw here mentioned TSI and how that's brought the birds in. Yes, you can absolutely be. I'm not the person to speak on this, but I know that there's some From the Woods Today episodes, past, present, and future, that could definitely be helping you out with like ways that you can really, really optimize your woodland for, these birds that need this specific type of habitat.
So Billy, why don't you explain just a little bit what TSI is for folks who don't know?
Sure, yeah. TSI or FSI, one is timber stand improvement or forest stand improvement, but basically it's any practice that you do in existing woodlands, to try to achieve some objectives. And it often involves removing certain trees to free up space for other trees. I was going to say, Anna, DJ does this presentation called Forestry for the Birds, and it's basically where you do timber harvesting for the birds, right? And a lot of that is because we have kind of a large canopy, right, over most of Kentucky, right? And it's not broken up for the most part. And when you open it up, you create different habitat, different kind of dynamics in those forests to attract different species of birds. So as Paul was mentioning there, it's really worked on his property, and DJ does a great presentation with that. He actually did it for the Kentucky Woodland Owners Association annual meeting last year doing that. And there are some other programs in some more northern states that have basically forestry for the birds programs and kind of that can walk you through some of the practices that can open it up for bird habitat. But yeah, it's a whole new. Who would have thought cutting trees helps birds, right?
I know. I feel like when we used to always hear like, oh, don't you be cutting down the trees.
No, they need it. They need that
some of these species, like it's the best thing you can do for them. Like Paul said, like it can really, really improve the habitat for, certainly bird species, but tons of other wildlife as well.
And it can make our trees grow better, right?
Yeah, and there's lots of amazing resources like DJ's program to help you, meet those goals.
Yeah, and he mentions that the Merlin bird app.
That's amazing. I have sat on my deck and just let it go, and it'll pop up all the different birds that you're listening to, and it's really neat to hear. Especially one that'll come up. I had one I can't remember the bird name now. I'd have to look it up, but it was like, this is a rare bird that you don't find very often in Kentucky, and I was like, oh, cool.
And it's free. It's free, you all. You need to download it right now.
Yep.
The best time was yesterday. The second best time is right now.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, thank you for answering those questions, Anna. But we are going to get to your presentation. And so flowers have languages. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, the flowers are out there doing their own thing, but we as people cannot resist like attributing our stuff to the flowers.
Oh yeah.
So this is kind of a little bit about humans and flowers and how we interact, and how we came up with this idea and concept of the language of flowers, which was very, very, it's not really something that's popular today, but it was very, very popular throughout the last like several hundred years. And along the way, hopefully you'll learn a little bit about flower ecology identification. I tried to include some species that should be popping up in your yard, in your woodland, anytime now. I know it doesn't seem like it
Hopefully.
could be spring, but some of these flowers are early bloomers.
Yeah.
So if you need to send a coded message to someone, I tried to include flowers that you will be able to get your hands on soon.
Oh man, get our
So,
decoder books
yes.
out, right?
Yeah, so get your notebooks out. Do you have a mortal enemy? Do you have a secret admirer? You are going to be learning,
Oh
how
man.
to send them a coded message using all native or introduced slash invasive,
Check out
maybe.
the chat before you jump into that, Anna. Is it what you're doing? Florography?
Ooh, floriography. So that is
I
what
like
it is
it. We
called.
just coined a
Floriography,
new
or the
term.
language of
Here you
flowers.
go. So
Yeah.
nice, man.
So yes, so we are out here throwing out these what do you call it? That would be a
Technical
great like trivia word,
I
wouldn't it?
know. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, so that is what we're getting into today. You are
Awesome.
exactly correct. Floriography is what we are deep diving into for our I don't know, I guess Valentine's Day special.
There you
But
go.
I just assigned it.
There you
Oh,
go.
that's
There you
awesome.
go.
No, I'm
Anointed. Yeah.
always hooking, trying to connect with
Yes.
different holidays, and that one I didn't even think of.
There
So
we
thank
go.
you.
Yeah, I know you like a holiday, Renee. So
I do.
I did my best to tie it in. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and
Thank you. Yeah, go
share
ahead.
my screen.
Yeah, get this going before we get too
Um,
sunny here on you.
Yeah, how
We'll
do
take up all your
you-
time,
Yeah.
Anna.
Yeah. And we want to hear from you.
Yeah.
All right. I don't believe it's coming up.
It's wanting to. It's
There.
coming.
It's
I had to think
coming.
on it for a minute.
It's thinking about it.
Okay.
Get the little
Is
gears.
it done thinking?
There, yeah,
Here.
just put it in presentation mode and you're good
Yep.
to go. There we go.
Got you.
Okay. Perfect.
good.
It was a little slow on the thinking part, but
You got it.
we have phlox blooming now. Ooh. See, you could be out there doing coded messages at this moment. There's phlox blooming. Okay. So first of all, I would love to, hear your thoughts, comments, questions in the chat. Always fun to be on here with the lovely folks and listeners of From the Woods today. And if I do not catch them or see them, I'm sure that Renee and Billy can hopefully pop on here, interrupt me, get them answered. We'll get it figured out. But let's go ahead and talk about floriography, or the language of flowers, and get started. So first of all, my name is Anna Weicker. I'm the outreach coordinator for the Kentucky Master Naturalist Program. So if that is something that you are interested in joining, I would be so happy to chat further. I can drop my email in the chat if you are. But today we're not talking about the Kentucky Master Naturalist Program, except in a very, very roundabout way. We are talking about native plants and the Victorian, specifically, symbology associated with them. Well, can you imagine if it just got stuck on that one slide and that's all you got to see the whole time? So flowers have been used across history and cultures to communicate in many different ways. I don't think this is surprising to anybody. Most of us, have kind of heard since we were little, like, oh, you would use a different color rose at, Valentine's Day than you might use for a funeral. We all have associations with flowers that we've kind of picked up just from existing in the world. And this has been the case for, all of human history, right? Pretty much, I feel like it's fair to say that. So we have to narrow it down a little bit to floriography. As mentioned in the chat at the start, this is the modern language of flowers. And it really began to solidify and become like its own sort of like unique phenomenon in the 1700s. So earlier, flowers were showing up in artwork. The imagery was used to reflect certain meanings and, indicate certain things in paintings, artwork, whatever it might be, literature. And a lot of that kind of was rolled up and stuffed into the quote unquote modern language of flowers that really developed during the Victorian period, through the late 1700s up through the Victorian period. So lots of influence from other, from different cultures, time periods, sort of all mushed together into the language of flowers. And basically what the language of flowers is / was is a cryptic means of communicating using different species of flowers, using different colors of the same species, using different arrangements, sometimes even adding different things into your bouquet. Like I've seen some Victorian bouquets that have like dead butterflies and pieces of hair and, different things that aren't plants necessarily in there to mean different things. But it is a very plant-centric means of cryptic communication, or at least how it was manifested in the Victorian period. So the phrase "the language of flowers" starts showing up in literature in specifically England and France and the United States pretty early on during this time period. And it really peaked in mainstream culture, like I said, during the Victorian period. So even though it's showing up in the late 1700s, really when this became a fad, we're talking about like the second half of like the second quarter of the 1800s up through the turn of the century. And I know that might not be specifically the Victorian period, but I can't specifically remember when the Victorian period is. So that's about what we're talking about. And although this really originated with some European, mostly English publications in this form, it was also documented pretty early on in the United States. Our very own past professor of Transylvania University, Constantine Samuel Rafinesque, published a column in the Saturday Evening Post in 1827 to 1828, where he talked about different flowers and their secret meanings and their, botanically interesting things that they did. And so he didn't use the exact phrase, "the language of flowers," but he included a little section in his column about the meaning that you could attribute to these flowers to use them for, whatever secret code you're trying to communicate with somebody else. And if you're not familiar with Constantine Samuel Rafinesque, he was a French American naturalist who there's a ton of critters out there that have Rafinesque as part of their scientific name or even common name. And he was, in fact, a professor at Transylvania University, a professor of botany, I believe. So a little Kentucky connection to the language of flowers there. But he was by no means the only one. There are a ton of publications of books dating from the early 1800s through the turn of the century about the language of flowers. Victorians went wild for this. It was the coolest and trendiest thing that you could be doing, possibly. So if you are interested in reading up on this from texts from that time period, I would be happy to drop some links in the chat. Of course, many of them are publicly available. So there are PDFs online where you can see the original text and read up on it if you'd like to create your own coded messages from authentic Victorian texts. I would be happy to provide those for you. There were so many different books that you could choose from and publications available that really this kind of became like a household thing. Like a lot of the times people would have one of these popular guides on hand in their house as, part of this trend of floriography, this trend of the language of flowers. There are many, many of them out there. I used two different ones to create this presentation, but you could go through so many. There's so many, and it's so fascinating and interesting to go through them and read about it. So if you're at all familiar with the Victorian time period, you probably know the Victorians have this reputation as being, sort of like sticks in the mud, maybe, like very proper, very prim. And they were, manners and social norms were very important to Victorian culture. Specifically, we're talking about the United States in this presentation, but they were also super dramatic and flowery. We've all probably read some Victorian poetry and been like, oh, yikes. But that was, kind of part of the language and culture of the time. They had, on one hand, very strict social expectations, but on the other hand, they were also really over the top with their feelings. And a great way to express that without crossing social lines is a big old bouquet, right? You've got your little guidebook to interpret your flowers, and you can say pretty much whatever you want to whoever you want via, creating your own little bouquet or, little See, this little lady here has gotten some in the mail. She's gotten a little bouquet in the mail, and then this gentleman is handing a bouquet to a lady. So, there you could construct it to convey whatever point you were trying to get across without having to say it in words and risk being scandalous or rude. So, did this always work out? Of course not. Humans have been infamously bad at communicating, probably from the dawn of time. And this is no exception, right? All of those guidebooks coming out, all of those publications coming out, it was for fun, right? It was a trend. It wasn't like there was some, Merriam-Webster of wildflowers overseeing this and making sure that everybody's book said exactly the same thing. So I am sure that there were some times and some places where people got their feelings hurt, because there were, lots of different interpretations just between the two books that I used for this program. So drop it in the chat if you know this flower. You are about to be seeing this flower in the wild, out here in the woodlands in Kentucky. It is a Kentucky native spring ephemeral woodland species, one of my favorites. Absolutely stunning woodland wildflower species that I see. Can I bring up the chat without causing my computer to crash? Yes, it is our very own dwarf larkspur, Delphinium tricorn. So what does this mean? Well, it depends on what guidebook you were using. Again, I use two different ones and I need to look up the names because I will not remember them. But the first one over here on, with the little picture on it is The Language of Flowers by Kate Greenway. It was published around the turn of the century, around 1900, 1901. And if you were to look at this little guidebook, this is the one you had at your house when, someone delivered you a bouquet of dwarf larkspur. A purple larkspur stands for haughtiness. So most of us would not really consider being haughty to be a perhaps positive thing to call somebody. And then over here, I have the other book that I referenced for this program, which is, gotta get some oxygen for this one, Flora's Lexicon, an interpretation of the language and sentiment of flowers, semicolon, with an outline of botany and a poetical introduction by Waterman Catherine H., published in 1855. I told you the Victorians were flowery with their language. And that one lists the larkspur down here as indicating ardent attachment. So you could go very sideways, giving someone a bouquet of larkspur and having them be using a different guidebook than you were using. So hazards of this communication method, I guess. Nothing has really changed. We've all misinterpreted an email before, I'm sure. So let's head out to the woods and see what flowers might be blooming soon and how you might interpret them via the Victorian language of flowers. So for this, I tried to choose ones that had pretty uniform meanings across multiple guidebooks because I'm not trying to get you in trouble, right? So our first one up is the yellow trout lily. This is another spring ephemeral wildflower that is going to be blooming in your woodland soon. Get out there and see it. It is a beautiful, lovely little member of the lily family. It has this little drooping yellow flower. And I think my favorite part of it is actually the leaves. It's where it gets the name trout lily. It's, got like almost like a dappled pattern on there, like the belly of a trout. An alternative name is fawn lily. So, I guess that could also be interpreted as looking like how fawns are when they're born with their little spots. Now with this one, like with a lot of our spring ephemerals, they are fragile, right? If they are picked sometimes with some species even once, but with many species persistently, it's really easy to damage a population or even remove it entirely. So if there's somebody that you would like to call a lying liar that lies because the yellow trout lily indicates falsehood, then you might be best to perhaps send a cryptic picture of a yellow trout lily to that person, rather than actually picking it, because we do want to conserve these, delicate spring ephemeral wildflowers. So that's our yellow trout lily, and it indicates falsehood. The yellow wood sorrel, this is one that you might see in the woods, but you may also see in your garden, in your yard, in waste spaces you have pasture edges. Um, it does like a little shade in my experience, but it's really, quite a hardy little species and should be coming out anytime soon. It looks similar to clover. If you look at those leaves, they almost look like a shamrock or clover. You may have also heard this called sour grass because when you chew on it, it has like a lemony flavor. And it has these like little yellow, delicate flowers that you can see down there in the lower picture where, they just pop up in the grass. One of the first flowers that I oftentimes see in the spring. Um, and they indicate joy, which I think is very nice because I know they're not the most like, I don't know, they're not a native species. I believe if I remember correctly, they are introduced. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Now that I'm saying that, it sounds wrong. Someone let me know in the chat if you know, because I forget if they're native or not native. But they're not maybe what most people would think about with, the most majestic spring flower, but I always feel joyful when I see them pop up. And I know that perhaps the end of our winter adventures in Kentucky might be close. So that is yellow wood sorrel, and it is used to indicate joy. Next up, we have one that you are, again, probably going to be able to see around your house. You may not have to go out in the woods for this one. It is the blue violet. Backyards, grassy areas, woodlands, pastures, really just about anywhere. It's got these unique heart-shaped leaves. Many violets do. Many species of violets have these heart-shaped leaves. And it also has 2 petals on the top and 3 on the bottom, which all violets have as well. Beautiful purple flowers. I know they're called blue violets. To me, they look more purple, but I'm willing to be corrected. And then, like I said, they've got those 2 petals on the top and 3 on the bottom. And they indicate faithfulness, which I think kind of makes sense because these are a flower that they're going to come up no matter what is going on. They are very hard to eradicate if you've ever tried to get them out of a garden. Next up, we've got another early blooming violet species. A lot of the times I do see this one in woods. It seems to prefer a little bit of shade. It's got heart-shaped leaves as well. It's got this yellow flower, very similar to the blue violet, but it's just yellow, and it has like little stripes on the inside of it. So it almost reminds me of a little pansy. And like I said, it likes shady spots, rich soil. And this one very specifically indicates rural happiness. So don't be trying to, give it to someone and think it indicates happiness in a town, only rural happiness. The Victorians were also very specific. If you read some of these meanings, you're like, that seems like a really niche communication with that flower. Dandelions, another one that you're going to be seeing coming up very soon. Very easy to recognize, very easy to find. Grows pretty much anywhere, comes up in the early spring. Got these lovely bright yellow flowers with fringed petals. And these ones are for sure not native to the US, but they were brought very early in, sort of the history of European immigration because they have medicinal and edible properties. So the dandelion indicates departure, which I guess kind of makes sense because you think of how it seeds itself with those little parachutes that fly away. I don't know if that's the connection. I'm making that up, but Speedwell, another early spring bloomer of disturbed areas like woodland edges, lawns. This is a tiny flower. If you've seen it in real life, then you know that it is like the littlest tiny flower. This picture kind of makes it look big. It has these little frilly leaves and it grows in mats. And then it'll have these tiny, tiny blue flowers with little lines on them. And the Speedwell indicates fidelity and is especially associated in a lot of the guidebooks as being more feminine. Next up, we've got white clover. And the white clover means I think of you. And I think that a little clover bouquet is just the cutest thing ever. So who cares if that's the only flower coming up in your yard? Look at that cute little white clover bouquet and you can give it to someone and it indicates that you're thinking of them. Most of us are familiar with this flower. We know what it looks like. We know how to identify it. We might have it in our yards or gardens. Most of us are familiar with that leaf shape as well. And then another piece of folklore that everybody's heard at one time or another is that, picking through a clover patch, if you come across one that has 4 little leaflets instead of 3, it is lucky. I had to throw an invasive species in there, y'all. This is one that is found in the woodlands in Kentucky, but it is, of course, an invasive species. We don't love multiflora rose, but the Victorians did. They thought it was beautiful. They thought it was lovely. And it is. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I do think it's a really beautiful plant, but that doesn't keep me from, cutting it down whenever I find it. But they introduced it to the United States in the mid 1800s. It was used as a root stock for more fragile rose varieties. And it was a popular ornamental. And so they had a positive connotation with multiflora rose. Whereas right now we might send multiflora rose to our enemies, right? And it is not a popular plant today, but it indicated grace in the language of flowers. It has that beautiful, like its flowers are in like an inflorescence, like they kind of come in a big clump, versus, some of our other flowers, which are, single row or our other roses, which are single roses on a stem. And then it has these long, y'all know, if you've ever tangled with multiflora rose, it has these really long, like thorny, like whip-like stems that are really, really difficult to manage. If you are not familiar with it and you've never identified it before, then you are you are the fortunate few in Kentucky. And then I had to pop in this little native rose here at the bottom. The Carolina rose, it's one of my favorite native roses. I have them around my woodland edges. They've got these single, like, beautiful pink flowers. And in the language of flowers, the Carolina rose means love is dangerous. So could be a little backhanded statement to somebody if you are sending them a Carolina rose bouquet. And it wasn't just flowers. It is called the language of flowers, floriography, but you could incorporate other things in there as well. Ferns were very popular. Leafy vines like the Virginia creeper here, which is a climbing vine. And, very important, I think, in picking anyone a bouquet is ensuring that you can identify that it is, in fact, not poison ivy. You do not want to give anyone a poison ivy bouquet. You will be making a statement, but it may not be what you intended. It has 5 leaflets rather than 3. Sometimes the younger leaves will have 3 leaflets, but in general, like you'll find plenty of leaves on the plant that have 5 leaflets rather than 3. And it turns this beautiful like orange and red during the autumn, which poison ivy is beautiful in the autumn too, but I really love to see some Virginia creeper in the autumn. And the Virginia creeper appropriately means I cling to you in sunshine and in shade. So that makes total sense. If you've ever had Virginia creeper taking over a building, then it certainly does cling to things in sunlight and in shade. And it's not just flowers, not just the Virginia creeper, not just ferns, but also trees. In honor of From the Woods today, I had to throw on a couple trees just to close us out. I know we're running out of time. But I wanted to add some trees so that even if flowers are not blooming yet, or even if you've come to the end of the flower blooming season, you don't have to stop sending people cryptic bouquets. You can keep doing it using leaves, twigs, and even flowering trees out and about in your woodlot. So having said all of that, I know I've run over my time by 1 minute and 30 seconds, so I will wrap it up. And I will take any questions that folks might have if we've got time for it, but I will certainly leave that up to Billy and Renee's judgment on that.
Well, thank you. That was an awesome presentation. I'll have to get you one just to do on trees.
Okay, listen.
I think
I had to cut it. I had to trim it down, Renee. I've got so much material.
Awesome. Well, yeah, we'll definitely
Nice.
I'll be back.
Yeah, so we'd love to see it. Yeah, really good, and really impressive.
It was
And
impressive.
interesting too. Very.
Yeah, we did have several questions. Anna, if you want to look in the chat pod, we did have several questions that popped up. I'm trying to get to them. Somebody says it's the emojis of the Victorian era, which
I love
that was kind of cool.
Our audience is so smart, man.
I know.
We never change. We never change as humans. We just do different things, but are they really that different?
I know.
Okay, so we did have some great points that I do want to bring up just real quick, if that's okay.
Yes.
That folks shared. So I could not remember the Victorian period, 1837 to 1901. So thank you for that. that approximately was in the neighborhood of correct, what I was saying. Is that also refer to bird's eye? I'm guessing speedball, bird's eye speedball was what we were looking at on that slide.
Probably. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I didn't grab it, or I didn't see that message when we were looking at it. But I'm guessing you were looking at the speedball, which is also called bird's eye or bird's eye speedball. It's that tiny, tiny, tiny little flower. So I guess it's probably a pretty appropriate name for that one. Lots of folks guessing the dwarf larkspur correctly, so get out in the woods and find it in real life for sure. The common wood sorrel, I couldn't remember if it was native. It looks like the debate is still raging, so
Uh-oh.
we are unsure. Native dandelion. Yes, I should have done the native dandelion. It didn't have to be the non-native one. I didn't even think of that.
Oh, I remember. Did you all do that too? Did you see Cindy's comment in there about making the or not that little bracelets out of the white clover?
Oh, I used to do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so cool. Yeah.
I haven't thought of that in forever.
Cindy, for a great
Yeah.
memory. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so many things you can do with it. You can make,
Yeah.
crowns. You can make bracelets.
Well-
You can send cryptic messages. You can send a bracelet with a cryptic
Yeah.
message.
One of our viewers was asking about the classification of the forget-me-nots. Where do you classify them? I'm assuming it's related to your presentation.
Oh, like in terms of the meaning of
I
them?
guess, yeah. I mean, is
Well,
it just
Is it in the
straightforward?
name?
Forget-me-not? I don't
know, but
know. I mean,
guess
that's a good
what?
question. Yeah. Oh,
Right
man.
here on the woods today, we are about to do
Oh,
some
some discovery.
on-air
I love it.
discovery. And I saw
Yes.
someone else ask for the links for the texts that I
Mhm.
use, so I will go ahead and
Drop those.
drop those in
Yeah.
there.
Fun. And for those
There
not,
is a, I'm sorry, Renee, go
no,
ahead.
okay, I was gonna say for others, we will go ahead and put once those links get posted for the recordings, we'll go ahead and pop those into the video so you can have them as well.
Yes, it is an amazing resource. There's an amazing resource called Internet Archive, which if you've never used before, it has a ton of PDFs of scanned on historic texts that are copyright free, like their copyright has expired. And it's great for research. I've used it for a ton of different research on nature programming before. And there's many books on the language of flowers on there, including the two that I used are both available on Internet Archive. So I will go ahead and put the link to the specific one that I used in the chat, sort of I don't know if it's my favorite one, but the prettiest one maybe. And from there, you can sort of hop on over to the main page of Internet Archive and look through, the other historic texts they have on the subject. So I'll grab that link and drop it in here, but not before we find out the truth of what forget-me-not actually means. Did the Victorians make it make sense, or did they make it weird?
We'll about to
never
find
know.
out.
And some people they're actually saying, I guess they're try to give me ideas that says, let's promote No Mow May, so they can have more
Yes.
clover, and I was like, I could start doing
Yeah.
this.
Just
As a
don't tell the
monthly thing.
lawnmower companies, right? Yeah.
I support No Mow May. I think we should do that.
Well, have you found that yet? Or I know it's
So forget-me-not, it looks like it's basically what you would think. They didn't do anything strange.
okay.
Straightforward.
They made it straightforward. Some of them were
forget-me-not.
not straightforward. Some of them are. But so I dropped in the chat just now. This is the 1901 Language of Flowers by Kate Greenway, I believe.
Okay.
And I just dropped that in the chat, and then you can click on that and it will take you to the scanned version of that. And from there, you can search in the upper right-hand corner for any other Language of Flowers related texts that you might want to, that anyone's uploaded on there. There's tons of cool ones. Great resource for further reading and
Excellent.
further encoding of your bouquets.
I love it.
That is so interesting.
Secret
Anna,
messages with
awesome
flowers.
show.
Yep.
We'll have you back talking about trees, secret messages, And we'll do that. Yeah. Anna, if you can put that link to everyone, I think it just went to us.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It
No,
happens.
thank you, Lori. Thank you for
I
noticing.
do that
I
a
was,
lot when I'm
yeah.
trying, and I was like, oh, I should have, changed that little drop
Yep.
down
I
button.
Zoom always defaults to what you don't want.
know.
You're
Yeah,
right.
don't read my mind. Yes.
Right, exactly. But Anna, thank you
There we
so
go.
much. That
Yeah,
was
For
an
great
awesome
segment.
presentation, and we'll get you back talking about the secret of
Trees.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Sorry I went
Thank you.
over,
No,
but I
you're
just
good,
couldn't
Anna. It
stop
was good
laughing.
stuff, and I know our audience really enjoyed it and enjoy you each time you're on here. So thank you.
Thanks, you all.
All right, see you later. Wow,
Really
Renee, a good
awesome. It
one.
was packed. It was,
It was.
we learned a ton of stuff today.
I know. I really appreciate Dr. McNeil and his Wings of Kentucky and their
Mhm.
bark clinging birds. It's fascinating. And then hearing from Anna, what all these different flowers, man.
Never thought of that.
Me
Mhm.
either. We learned so much on this show, and thank you all for being with us. We want to learn together with you all. So if there's stuff you all would like to learn about related to your forest and wildlife and natural resources, let us know. Because if you're dealing with it, others probably are as well. So Renee does a great job of tracking down experts as needed, and we'll get whoever we need to help you all know what you need to deal with. But thank you all for being with us each week. What a great show, Renee. And yeah, it's great. 26. We're doing great. Numbers are looking good. Thank you all so much for being with us. If you're some new viewers, we really do appreciate you all, and spread the word. You probably know other folks who could benefit from the show as well.
Definitely. We greatly appreciate you joining us. Remember, go to FromTheWoodsToday.com anytime you want to rewatch. Maybe you're like, ooh, what did that flower mean? And you can rewatch it in about a week, and we will have all there. We have a search function now. Woohoo! So you can actually find exactly what you're searching for just for From the Woods Today. So that's awesome. That was actually brought on by one of our viewers, and I've been trying to get it on, and I was like, hey, we got someone wanting it. So then it made it happen. So it was awesome.
Excellent.
So
Excellent.
but we appreciate you the most. Thank you each week for watching us, and we will see you all next week.